let me ask you something, and I want you to think about this carefully. Have you ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went there? Have you ever called your child or a close friend by the wrong name just for a second and felt that cold, unsettling pause? Have you ever lost your keys not once, but 4 times in the same week and told yourself, "Oh, I'm just tired"? If any of that sounds familiar, I need you to stop scrolling right now, because what I'm about to tell you is something most doctors don't take the time to explain properly, and it could change the entire trajectory of the next decade of your life. My name is Toria. I have sat across from men and women who were sharp, vibrant, and full of life, and watched them lose pieces of themselves, not because of some sudden disaster, but because of quiet, everyday habits. Habits they never thought twice about. Habits that seemed completely harmless. That's what makes this so dangerous. We are not talking about a dramatic brain injury. We are not talking about a rare genetic disorder. We are talking about things you did today, things you'll probably do tomorrow. And unless you know what they are, you will keep doing them, slowly and silently eroding the very organ that makes you, you. The brain after 65 is not doomed. Let me be very clear about that. The research is actually full of hope, but that hope only exists if you are willing to face some uncomfortable truths first. So today, I'm going to walk you through 6 daily habits that are quietly destroying memory after the age of 65. Some of these will surprise you. One of them, I guarantee, is something you're doing right now. Stay with me. This could be the most important 25 minutes you spend this year. Before we get into the habits, I want to give you about 90 seconds of biology, because understanding what's happening inside your brain will make everything else I tell you feel urgent and real. Your brain has roughly 86 billion neurons. Think of each one as a tiny light bulb. The connections between those neurons, called synapses, are the electrical wires. When your memory is healthy, those wires are firing beautifully. Signals travel fast. You remember names. You recall conversations. You feel mentally sharp. After 65, the brain naturally slows its production of new neurons. The hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped region in the center of your brain that is entirely responsible for forming new memories, begins to shrink. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that after age 65, the hippocampus loses approximately 0.5% of its volume every single year. That doesn't sound like much, but over 10 years, you've lost 5% of your most critical memory center. Here's what that looks like in real life. Forgetting what you read 5 minutes ago, struggling to recall names you know well, repeating yourself in conversations without realizing it. Now, here's the critical point. This natural process is not the real enemy. The real enemy is what you do every single day that accelerates that shrinkage, poisons those synaptic connections, and speeds up the clock by years, even decades. That is what we're here to talk about. Habit. 1. Sleeping less than 7 hours. I want to start with the one that I believe is the most underestimated killer of memory in people over 65. Sleep. Not lack of sleep as in pulling an all-nighter. I mean the quiet, chronic habit of getting by on 5 or 6 hours a night, telling yourself you've always been a light sleeper, that you don't need that much, that you'll catch up on weekends. Here's what's actually happening during those missing hours of sleep that you don't know about. Your brain has its own waste disposal system. It's called the glymphatic system, and it only fully activates during deep sleep. Think of it like a pressure washer that runs through your brain every night, flushing out toxic proteins, cellular debris, and, critically, a compound called amyloid beta. Amyloid beta is the primary protein that forms the plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. When you sleep poorly, when you cut those hours short, the glymphatic system doesn't finish the job. The waste builds up. Night after night, week after week, year after year, those toxic proteins accumulate in your brain tissue like garbage that was never collected. A landmark 2017 study published in the journal Nature Communications showed that just one single night of sleep deprivation significantly increased amyloid beta accumulation in the human brain. One night. Imagine what years of inadequate sleep is doing, but it gets worse. During sleep, specifically during the slow wave and REM stages, your brain consolidates the memories of the day. It takes everything you experienced, everything you learned, everything you felt, and it transfers those short-term recordings into long-term storage. If you're not getting those deep sleep stages, that transfer never happens. Those memories dissolve like writing in sand. And here's the heartbreaking part. Many people over 65 don't even know they're getting poor quality sleep. They lie down for 8 hours, but they're only achieving 2 hours of truly restorative deep sleep. Fragmented sleep from sleep apnea, frequent bathroom trips, or simply lighter sleep architecture in older age. All of it interferes with this critical nightly maintenance. What should you do? First, take your sleep as seriously as your medications. Set a consistent bedtime and wake time, even on weekends. Second, if you snore or if your partner says you stop breathing in the night, get a sleep study. Sleep apnea in people over 65 is epidemic. It's underdiagnosed, and it is one of the fastest routes to memory decline I know. Third, avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed. The blue light from your phone or television suppresses melatonin and prevents the brain from entering that critical deep sleep. Sleep is not laziness. Sleep is brain maintenance, and if you've been skimping on it, you have been skipping your brain's nightly repair service for years. Habit 2. Living in social isolation. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call him Robert. Robert was 68 years old when he retired. Brilliant man, former engineer, sharp as a tack his entire life. He moved to a quiet neighborhood, had everything he needed, and settled into what he called the peaceful life. Days spent mostly alone, minimal contact with family, no real social routine. Within 3 years, his daughter brought him to see me because she noticed he was repeating himself in conversations. He was forgetting recent events. He was struggling to follow complex instructions. Robert was not unusual. He is the rule, not the exception. Social isolation is one of the most powerful accelerators of memory loss and cognitive decline that we know of, and it is absolutely rampant among people over 65. Here's the neuroscience. When you engage in meaningful conversation, when you debate ideas, when you laugh, when you argue, when you navigate complex social situations, your brain is firing on multiple cylinders simultaneously. You're drawing on language centers, emotional processing, memory recall, attention, and executive function all at the same time. Social interaction is, essentially, a full brain workout. Take that away, and those circuits begin to quiet, then weaken, then deteriorate. A major study by the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center followed nearly 900 older adults for 5 years. Those who reported the highest levels of loneliness had a 64% higher risk of developing clinical dementia compared to those who felt socially engaged. 64%. That is not a small number. That is more than double the risk. And understand, we're not just talking about people who have no family. We're talking about people who live with family but don't truly connect. We're talking about people who sit in a room with others but feel profoundly alone. Emotional isolation is just as damaging as physical isolation. The pandemic taught us this in brutal, real-time fashion. Studies published in the years following COVID-19 lockdowns showed accelerated cognitive decline in older adults, particularly those who had minimal in-person social contact during that period. What can you do? You don't need a social calendar packed with events, but you need regular, meaningful human contact, a weekly lunch with a friend, a community class, a religious or spiritual gathering, volunteer work, even regular video calls with grandchildren, if done consistently and with genuine engagement, have been shown to provide measurable cognitive benefit. The brain responds to meaningful human connection. Give it what it needs. If you are watching this alone right now, I want you to hear me. Your brain needs people, not as a luxury, as medicine. 3. A diet high in ultra-processed foods. I want you to think about what you ate yesterday. Was there white bread, packaged biscuits, processed deli meat, canned soups with long ingredient lists, breakfast cereals, fizzy drinks, even the diet ones, frozen ready meals? If you said yes to even 2 or 3 of those, you are feeding your brain a diet that is quietly, methodically dismantling its ability to function. Ultra-processed foods, the technical term is Nova Group 4 foods, are products that contain ingredients you would never find in a home kitchen. Emulsifiers, artificial colorants, flavor enhancers, hydrogenated fats, high fructose corn syrup. These compounds don't just affect your waistline, they affect your brain at the cellular level. Here is how. The gut and the brain are connected by what scientists call the gut-brain axis, a two-way communication highway that runs through the vagus nerve. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system, produces approximately 90% of the body's serotonin and significant quantities of other neurotransmitters that directly influence brain function, mood, and memory. Ultra-processed foods destroy the diversity of your gut microbiome. They feed harmful bacteria. They cause chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And that inflammation reaches the brain. Neuroinflammation is increasingly understood to be one of the central mechanisms behind cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. A landmark study published in JAMA Neurology in 2022 followed over 10,000 adults over 8 years and found that those who consumed more than 20% of their daily calories from ultra-processed foods showed a 28% faster rate of global cognitive decline and a 25% faster rate of executive function decline. These numbers held true even after accounting for other lifestyle factors. And then there's blood sugar. Ultra-processed foods spike blood glucose rapidly. The insulin surges and crashes that follow, repeated daily over years, cause direct damage to the hippocampus. Some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes. That's how closely chronic blood sugar dysregulation is linked to memory destruction. What should you eat instead? The Mediterranean and MIND diets have the strongest evidence base for protecting cognitive function after 65. That means olive oil as your primary fat, leafy green vegetables at least 5 times a week, berries 3 or more times a week, fatty fish like salmon or sardines at least twice a week, nuts daily, legumes regularly, and dramatically reduced red meat and sugar. These are not just heart foods, they are brain foods. Specifically and measurably so. Blueberries alone, so humble, so overlooked, contain flavonoids called anthocyanins that have been shown in human clinical trials to improve memory performance in older adults. Your brain is not asking for much, just real, whole food. It's asking for what it was designed to run on. Every meal is either fighting for your brain or working against it. There is no neutral ground after 65. 4. Physical inactivity. I know what some of you are thinking. I have bad knees. My back gives me trouble. I'm 72 years old. I'm not going to start running marathons. I hear you, and I want to make something very clear. I'm not asking you to become an athlete. What I am telling you, with every piece of scientific evidence at my disposal, is that physical inactivity after 65 is one of the most directly damaging things you can do to your brain. And the research on what it takes to protect your brain is far more accessible than you think. When you exercise, even a brisk 30-minute walk, your brain releases a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Scientists sometimes call it miracle grow for the brain, because that is essentially what it does. BDNF stimulates the growth of new neurons, strengthens synaptic connections, and specifically protects the hippocampus, that memory center we spoke about earlier, from shrinkage. Dr. Kirk Erickson at the University of Pittsburgh published a now-famous study in which older adults who walked 40 minutes 3 times a week for 1 year actually showed increased hippocampal volume at the end of the study. Not slowed shrinkage, actual growth, in people who had already passed 65. That is extraordinary. That is the brain literally rebuilding itself in response to movement. Exercise also improves cerebral blood flow, meaning more oxygen and glucose reach your neurons. It reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that is particularly toxic to hippocampal tissue. It improves sleep quality. It reduces systemic inflammation. Every single mechanism by which the brain protects itself is enhanced by regular physical activity. And the opposite is equally true. Sedentary older adults, those who sit for more than 8 hours a day with minimal movement, show significantly greater brain atrophy, poorer memory test performance, and higher rates of dementia diagnosis. Sitting has been called the new smoking. And for brain health after 65, that comparison is not hyperbole. What is realistic? Aim for 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week. That's just over 20 minutes a day. Walking, swimming, cycling, gentle dancing, it all counts. Add 2 sessions of light resistance exercise each week, and break up your sitting time. If you are watching television for 3 hours in the evening, stand up and move for 5 minutes every 45 minutes. This alone has measurable benefit. Your joints may ache, your energy may feel low. I understand that. But I want you to understand